All right. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Help Me See. Today, groundbreaking news, which is amazing. Sylvia Bella is here, and I haven't had a guest on the podcast in fucking forever. And there's a reason why why I'm breaking that with Sylvia. She is just a magical, amazing human being that I have the privilege to have met in a amazing women's retreat, and also in a container with her, led by another facilitator, Steph Traska. And Sylvia is a human design business mentor. And uh, I just cannot wait to have this conversation. Thank you for being here, Sylvia. How are you?
Wow, what an intro. Thank you so much for having me. Doing well. I think we all have been in this hibernation mode. Today the recording is February 10th, and we're kind of still coming out of all of that. And we're just kind of figuring out like where can we look into ourselves a little bit more? Where can we start to find the answers within ourselves a little more instead of all this craziness that has been out in the world? And you and I are so lucky to have this community of women that are always there to support us, to cheer us on with our talents, our gifts, and not everybody has that. So I think that's what it's all about for me with my human design business is allowing people to get that permission slip to live their lives really authentically the way that maybe you haven't even said out loud before or haven't admitted to yourself. Um, and so I think this is a big consequence of COVID and having that pause button on life and everything starting to unravel and have the space to breathe and think about who we are and what we actually really want.
hmm I, when I first got laid off and started my own business, like I remember I had a conversation with someone. They were like, "Oh, you give people permission to X, Y, Z." I don't know. At that point in
Mm,
time for me, that was such a trigger for me, and I felt so like I don't, who am I to give someone permission to what? And now, like living with it and through it and experiencing that from so many other people, that's exactly the word that I would use when I feel so
mm,
like blessed and like I could exhale after being with someone. It's like they gave me permission I didn't know I needed, didn't know I was seeking. Didn't, it's
mhm,
just such a beautiful experience. And even coming out of that women's retreat, I almost didn't go because I was so anxious and I was having such crazy issues with my ear. I still am with my ear and just, I don't know, life. And then I just had this feeling that, like, no, this is why you need to go even more. And coming out of that, it was really unique because during this retreat, each person there facilitated a session and had their own unique contribution to it. And this was beautiful. And really, the common thread between all of us, I felt, was that everyone in their own way was really deeply, purely, and sincerely wanting to lead each woman back to themselves in the
yes.
most like foundational, liberating way. And
Mhm.
really, I would love to, before we even dive into our conversation, I hate to do the whole tell us how you got here, but it's just so good. Like if you could share a little bit about what you were doing before and what was the switch that made you come over to human design and why you feel so strongly about it. I would love that.
Absolutely. Kind of on that same theme, I think that I had blasted through all the shoulds in life. I have this unstoppable energy, this battery that just never stops. And so I was doing all the things on the list, right? Like going to school, graduating. I graduated college early. I got a career. I got promotions, blah, blah, blah. And even through COVID, like I had a little bit of a pause, but it was still like, no, I need to get to the next place. I need to create some kind of safety for myself. And so that's why even now I've shifted my language from motivation because motivation can be in lack and fear and need for safety over to momentum. And so throughout that whole journey and moving up here to Cleveland, actually, I had pursued a promotion and I started to realize, oh, I've made it. What now? On paper, I had done everything you needed to do, like been really successful. And, the next step would be to try to find a partner and get married and like check all those boxes. But my internal world was like falling apart. And having been in project management, people management, logistics, sales, marketing, all these different types of roles that are um, looking for that integration piece, that connecting piece, I was like, I know that I can do this myself. I was just being squished into this tiny box, and every day of my existence, I could not be fully 100% myself. And the position was great. It just was the culture was not for me, unfortunately, like many companies are, right? And so I knew that I had to get out, and I started my own business consulting, doing virtual assistants as well as online business management, helping create structures and systems in the back end. And I have in my human design such a way of collecting all of that knowledge and distilling it into something really digestible and actionable. And so I started realizing I was forcing myself to create all this structure for myself in the way that I was creating it for other people. And that was actually boxing me in too. I started resenting the business that I had built for myself, and things were not flowing, things were not working. Um, and so, in taking that breath to enjoy life and enjoy the summertime and enjoy just existing, I was really looking to be that person that was like floating down a creek and just forgetting about all the to-do lists and all the structures and all the things I was supposed to do. And I started to realize, oh, I've known about human design this whole time. And I was running up against all these blocks with my clients where I felt like they wanted to do something and wanted a deliverable, like a website or a system or software that made them feel like I'm running a real business. I'm a real business owner. And I personally came up against this block where I was like, I feel like that's not what's best for you. That's not going to work with who you are. That's not going to work with your energy and how much you want to expend or your lifestyle. And so coming back to that process of building trust with the client, getting to know the client, and then giving them what they really need in their business, I bridged that gap with human design and fully committed to that and got a certification, went through a program to learn all about it, start doing readings, and then start mentoring business owners and still doing some business consulting, but still incorporating human design where this structure and this tool to learn deeply about yourself is your energy type, the way that you make decisions, the way that you interact with the world, and also where your energy gets hijacked, where you get pulled around and can be influenced or conditioned a little bit more easily. And so applying that lens was just like putting on the glasses, and I realized, oh, I can get to know a client just like that. And now I can see this is how much energy you have in a day. We need to automate more of these processes on the back end. So all that you have to do is show up, or you have a larger battery like I do. So you like to do manual labor. You like to build things for people and with people. You like to collaborate. So let's structure your business that way. And creating these small shifts for people has been incredible because it is that deep sigh of relief of like, oh, I didn't know I could do it like this. Or, oh my gosh, you said something that I've had on my mind for years and I haven't even said it out loud. I get to exist this way. That's that's the permission slip I needed. And so combining business consulting and structuring things with human design and incorporating more of my own human design, I started liberating myself and holding more potent space for my clients. And the things that weren't working just started dropping away. I mean, it was incredible to watch. And I knew exactly what was happening when we start shifting into this different version of ourselves, this more aligned version with ourselves with the timeline that we want to happen. It can look a little scary where we're like, oh my gosh, all the familiar things are gone, or I don't even know myself anymore because I don't like the same things. I don't do the same things. Like, who am I? And getting to use your human design as a blueprint for where you get to go, who you get to be, and then enjoying the journey of that rediscovery of self is just like, it's not easy, but it is fun. It can be fun.
It's so fascinating and it feels so fucked up to even be like, oh, I'm allowed to exist like this. Like the
Yeah.
way I am, there's nothing inherently deeply wrong with me. It's like this,
Yeah.
what we were saying before we hit record, this old world meets new world of like, wait, wait a minute. Like there's so much momentum like in the way that it's been done for so long up into this point. I mean, like this is how this should be done.
Mhm.
And if you struggle here, it's because XYZ. You said, like, my whole
Sure.
life I've been thinking this about the way I am and like how human design is so healing that it helps that stuff fall away because it's not as inflated with like all this baggage. It's like you've told yourself a
Yeah.
story about yourself your whole life until now and then you read this insanely fucking crazy blueprint you get from putting in this information about yourself. I still don't understand. Like I would like a little bit more of the background from you because I actually have no
Sure.
idea like science and this and that. But one of the biggest things, it was actually, and I've been aware of human design for a while, but it was only specifically through your website when I downloaded the thing and I redid it just now so I could go back to it.
Mhm.
Um, one of the, and I self-identified this as through my NLP training. Like I did a neuro linguistic
Yeah.
programming process and I got to this point where I realized how deeply like I associated fear with love and I'm like, "Oh, that's the thing. That's my problem. I've used fear. Like this whole time was because I'm programmed by my father, my overprotective father, blah blah blah. Okay, I see it and and I can open my heart to it and I understand that's how I see more deeply. Okay, but still, it's a fucking problem." And then I did you I did your thing on the website and my eyes almost fell out of my head because under motivation it says fear and then I clicked on it and it says when you are in the right environment for you and you see the world as you are meant to do you are driven by the right motivation and in your case it is fear. So the right motivation is fear for me, fear of the unknown. That's why you're driven to try to understand everything, to get to the bottom of things, to investigate, to go deeper, always looking to make sense of it all, to feel safe and secure. So I was like, wait a minute.
Mind blow.
So that's not a defect? And I thought I was already well on this human design train where I'm like, I am the way I'm supposed to be. I still thought fear was like deeply wrong of me, in me. What? What?
It's one of those things that you and I can go back to some of the pieces of how everything comes together,
Yeah.
but all of this goes so, so deeply. There's all of these pieces that in my business consultant kind of way feed in all this information to become more digestible so that we can on a day-to-day um, learn to exist just as we are and enjoy the energy that we have access to all the time. But then there are all of these undercurrents, and I kind of think about it um, as a short explanation with our profile. There's two numbers, which are the first one being the conscious. I think about it like a movie where everything is playing out and you see yourself as the main character in the movie, you see yourself interacting with people, but you're going through chronologically and figuring it all out. And the plot happens as it happens. You can't technically skip ahead in your own movie, right? And so then there's the undercurrent, there's the unconscious, the second number in the profile that is that unconscious, you don't realize it's happening, but we when we look at our human design, it's like we're sitting on the couch and we're watching the movie and we're like, "Oh my gosh, I see all the themes. I see how the plot's playing out. I see why like what the director's trying to do here, and I understand now all of these undercurrents that are playing into why this character us why this character is choosing bad friends over and over, the same type of person, or the same dating habits, or the same, oh yeah, I can save everybody. Oh yeah, I'll put everything on my plate to save the day, and it doesn't matter what happens to me. And once we start to look at these pieces that are all laid out in front of us with our human design. It's like, wow, I didn't realize that this was happening to me. And instead, we get to start to reframe to this is happening for me. And how can I, especially with that unconscious profile, start to create some boundaries around how I get to interact with people and how for me, um, my unconscious is actually called the heretic or the savior. So I have this like save the day energy, and I now get to create these boundaries around how I get to help you save the day or realize that I don't have to be the person that saves your day. I can help you save your own day. And so we start to realize all these things about ourselves. And it is like, yes, the day-to-day energy, but it starts to unravel all of these things that we've said about ourselves. And I love a session that I was actually in with Steph, where she described how all these little things over our life where we maybe picked it up from someone else or we said it to ourselves, like, you're stupid, you're not smart enough, whatever, we feel it energetically. Every single time we whisper it to ourselves, we feel it energetically and systematically in our body, in our nervous system, as if someone is screaming it in our face. And starting to unravel those little bits and being like, oh, I'm motivated by fear, but that is what protects me. That is what creates a safe space for my brain. And how can I work with that? How can I use it in a higher expression instead of letting it rule my life in ways I didn't even understand.
I I really resonate with that that example of how you're saying like yeah even if we're just whispering it to itself ourself in that way it energetically is like being screamed at in the face because Steph and I were having that conversation about how like maybe it's not so hilarious to be like I'm just so anxious all the time and scared you know like I'm just an anxious person
Right.
continuing to deepen that neural pathway around what the lower expression of our truth because it is real it's not like I'm no,
Right.
I'm being with myself and feeling that in my body. So I don't want to be denying that and I don't want to be, gaslighting myself, but like it's also, okay, how can that serve me just in the way that you said? Of course, trying to save the day all the time could be extremely draining. How do I place boundaries around how I get to do that? Because I love doing that. It's a craving of mine. It's like in me. And how do I do that in a way that's like self sustaining and preserving and energizing and not in a way that's going to like run me into the ground? In NLP, this, what you said, especially in the beginning, right before you made the switch to human design mentor full time,
Hmm.
um, we were basically taught that so many times when someone's coming to you with what they see to be the problem, it's a symptom, and not in a dismissive way, but it's like okay, you're listening to what they're saying is like this is the thing I have to fix, like just what you said. The business owner is like this is what I need. This is the thing. This will solve it. But then you're like iceberg. Okay, let me like this full picture so that I can really deeply sustainably serve you rather than plug a
Hmm.
hole, put a band-aid on that's just going to come undone later on. Um, and I think that this part of even when you said about your own human design, you said how you have the natural tendency to distill information into actionable steps. It's like being able to do that for someone else whilst respecting their deeply strong and pure instincts is a superpower. So I'm just so excited that you are in this work now and it's such a testament to I don't know, just being a clear channel and feeling that in your body and then like going out and just being that truth in the world.
Oh my gosh. Beautifully said. The way that you say things is just so beautiful in this
Yeah, throw a couple F bombs in there, just make sure
Yeah.
add some
You're like, let's
texture.
throw some spice on it. Yeah.
Oh
Oh my
man.
gosh. But it truly is. It's like that testament of starting to realize and starting to own my human design. Oh my gosh. If you run your human design and you realize, oh, some of these things I thought were my mom or my coworker. Oh my gosh, Bianca, when I first ran my human design just through like a free generator, and then, 6 months later, when I first found it, 6 months later, I finally got a real reading. But at first, I was looking at it, I was reading it, and I was like, no, my coworker's a really good project manager. He's the one. I was projecting all of these aspects of myself onto other people and appreciating other people instead of owning how powerful and how magnetic and how amazing I was, how good at my job I was, all of these things. I was like, oh, it was just this bubble burst moment. And that's, I think, when I started to realize, oh, I get to branch off here. I get to make my own business because I am the one, just like maybe in a relationship where you have this honeymoon phase and you're like, oh my gosh, everything about them is so amazing. Oh my gosh, I can't live without them. Blah, blah, blah. And then once you are disenchanted and you step away a little bit, you're like, oh, I was the one that was making the thing amazing. I was the one making the relationship amazing with my energy and my power. And being able to bring it to your awareness and start to ask these questions of like, okay, this is something that is a huge part of my chart. Why do I not believe that this is who I am? Or what has been preventing me? Or what have I taken in as conditioning that prevents me from believing that I get to be this powerful? Or I, for example, as a generator, I have just endless energy, but at that job, I was lethargic. I felt gross. I was just no energy for anything at the end of the day, especially that I was passionate about. And I was just so, so heavy. So when I read, oh, yeah, you're this life force energy, you bring light to a room, I was like, man, I do not feel like that right now. Who is that girl? Because it is not me. And so it was that beginning of like, oh man, my world is crumbling bit by bit away, and I need to rediscover this energy, that I need to rediscover these pieces about myself. And what fortunately I get to do is, instead of giving you like a giant PDF, like 200 pages, it's not about the quantity of information, it's about the quality and being able to break that down so you can integrate it into your life. So you can take these actionable steps or have these small reframes, because that's where the power is. It's in that day to day and realizing that you're shifting like constantly every single time, and not holding on to pieces of our identity anymore, not making me, I'm a socially anxious person, part of our identity, because it's not. It's just a quality. And of course, we see this in psychology and therapy and a lot of these other different things that we experience in daily life and in the real world, as I could say. But all of this is giving us a permission slip to come back to who we really are and to separate ourselves from what we think we are rather than, or who we should be, rather than who we really are at the core, and what we can do with all that potential once we get some more momentum in a different direction. One of the biggest things that I learned from think it was actually a fitness coach. She said that we have all this momentum when we are on a bullet train or something like that. A train is going so, so fast, and we have to slow it down and then stop it and then slowly ramp back up and take it into another direction. It can't just stop on a dime and then immediately go in the other direction. And that's where we start to see, I think, a lot of this like false urgency or this marketing pop up where we're like, I have the proven script and the proven strategy and blah, blah, blah to get your business 10x. Like, what does that even mean?
For the
And
exact human that I am. And
right.
I'm nothing like you.
Exactly. And it's like these really quick get rich schemes or whatever. We have all of this marketing that starts to hijack us. And we'll see this in like our open energy centers, the white energy centers, where it's like pulling and poking at, oh, well, you have trouble with your self-worth. This is what I'm going to say to get you to buy this and solve your problems now. And it is that band-aid. It is that like plugged hole. And us as practitioners, as space holders, as facilitators, as mentors and guides, it's our responsibility to hold ourselves accountable to make sure that yes, we want like sustainable monthly revenue and try to predict our business and things like that, but it's about how do we serve each client to where they're at and in such a responsible way that they feel comfortable, they feel seen and held, and they don't feel squeezed or dependent on you as a coach or facilitator to keep buying more and more of your programs and become dependent instead of actually empowering and giving them the tools that they need to fully grow. And like I was talking to someone the other day on a consult, and I was like, "Well, how do you hold them in the gap when they try to step away from you?" She's like, "I don't. They can end their relationship with me and they can come back when they want to." I was like, "Oh, yeah, girl, you're my type of person." People are on their own journey, and utilizing messaging and running your business in a responsible way goes way farther than trying to have this 10x, 30K month, like all of these vanity metrics. What's really important is being able to support people in a responsible and accountable way.
Yeah, it requires such deep trust and conviction in like the exact work that you're doing that you're like, this is just the way it has to be. I remember the first time I worked with a coach that was very much like, it wasn't just a given that you could just enroll in the next thing. It was like, she very much spoke the elephant in the room of like, if I'm doing my job, you don't need me, you want me as like someone to
Right.
bounce off of. It's not like this dependent, codependent thing. Hold on one second. Cashy baby, I
Sure.
really need you out of here because you're distracting me in the background. Okay. I'll come out when I'm done, okay? I wish I could be one of those moms that like really doesn't care if their kids in a room, but it's wildly distracting for me. Um, two things were coming up as you were just talking. Overwhelm and energy leaks. It's like
Mm,
immersing yourself in this level of self-validation, self-realization, self-discovery, self-expansion, self-expression. It's like it's so I remember when I learned about my human design. I was on a layover, a long layover, and I'd never been so happy to have like a block of time where I couldn't do anything and that was all I was doing. Because it just goes so deep and there's so much unraveling that happens and then you get so thirsty and you're like, oh my god, I want to change everything right now. Like, oh my god, I'm okay. And then but it's hard and it's hard to integrate and really what you're saying practically apply this in the small places of your life so that these big currents can change. And I think that I know we talked about this when we were at the retreat, but like how purposefully and intentionally you limit what you're sharing, not in a
mm,
gatekeeper way, but in a way of like, I know if I fire hose this, like nothing's gonna stick. It's so
right.
deep, and every little thing is so meaningful. And I totally wholeheartedly agree. I feel that way in my mentorship, like with if I'm talking to photographers and with vision and all of that stuff. And I think about how when you are stepping into this world and remembering yourself in this way, it plugs, even with if you do nothing, even if you put no action plan, you're not doing anything with it, just the knowing and the awareness of, oh, this is exactly who I am and it's perfect, it stops
Mhm.
all of these energy leaks. There's just so much energy and time that goes into lashing ourselves for trying to do life a way that we're not meant to do it or shaming ourselves for what the fuck ever. So it's just even if even if you just get a reading and reacquaint yourself with no intention to do anything or to turn yourself into a business or whatever it is, just this awareness is so incredibly healing.
I completely agree. And it's like this, I love that you said it's not just for businesses. It's for everybody. It's for anybody who wants to get to know themselves deeper and start to unravel. And not everybody is ready to pull back that curtain on like all these different ways that they're creating their own chaos in their life. And it can be, I mean, I'll just say it what it's like world ending for pulling back that curtain taking the red pill, we watched The Matrix last night, and realizing, oh my gosh, I am the one that is allowing these things to happen to me. I was in a space, I was talking to somebody, and we talked about um, actual obstacles and perceived obstacles. Now, she worked from home Mondays and Fridays, and her position didn't start until 10 a.m. And so she was talking about how she can't get to the gym, she can't meal prep, she can't eat breakfast, and starting to name some of those things as actual obstacles and perceived obstacles. It's like, oh, I have a lot of flexibility, but I'm the one that's allowing other people to put things on my calendar, to be indispensable and be the only person who can handle a problem for people and always being available. And so once we start to identify these things, it is world ending because you literally can't go back to the way that it was before. And so I mean, I encourage people who are looking for that sense of clarity to step forward with bravery because it is it, it is that self-development journey. And as entrepreneurs, you can't hide from self-development either. But it is that that trust and knowing that you've been on the cusp for something, for some kind of change, some kind of transformation, like something is coming. I'm not sure what it is for a while. And having that bravery to step up to the door that's leading you to the next chapter, to open it, to peek on what's on the other side. And these are all different phases that you go through, peeking to see what's on the other side, stepping through, seeing everything that's on the other side, and actually fully closing the door behind you. Because especially your word and your wording of energy leaks, a lot of that happened for me in my business, just as OBM and business consulting. It happened because I was wanting to walk through the door, but I had not fully closed it. My business coach called it like, you're leaving the door cracked. And all of this energy is just going out that door because I was allowing other people to say, this is what I expect of you, even though it's not in my package. Or um, I don't know. There were some severe reminders of like, if you're not going to set your boundaries, people are going to blast through them, Sylvia. And I unfortunately suffered and like was keeping myself from closing that door. And when we start to look at all of this, we get to see where, and that's where my like analytical mind starts to come in. Like we have these gaps, we have these pathways that are allowing us back into the old world, back into our old life. And how do we really pull ourselves forward and keep the energy? Um, Not necessarily like high energy, but like keeping ourselves centered and grounded and ready for something bigger, something better for us.
And allowing ourselves to reinterpret what that can mean for us because I've taken like I love how you just distilled it into like very specific an example of something so mundane like oh I don't get to do the meal prep or whatever because I have to work I start at 10 and this and it's perceived like I think about how I've always identified as like an extreme person. I'm either here I'm here. I'm working out every day or not for 2 years. And and even with this journey into entrepreneurship that I did not intend to be a self-growth situation,
Hmm.
but
We
got
never
pummeled
do.
into it. Nope, nope, nope. I I found myself like, okay, wanting to keep my work sacred, very much so, like not putting the pressure of like, oh, this business, art, whatever the hell will provide for me. So I started freelancing and I'm like, okay, this works because I travel 1 week a month. I get my own space. I crave space. I like to be away. I'm like, okay, this is great. And then this feast or famine energy was really starting to wear on me. And I'm like, but I'm a person who thrives on this or that. And this job is great because it's a title that's in my industry and it's work that is really fun for me and the wages are great. But like this craving for feeling grounded and like rooted in my life and not I was feeling so flighty and so all over the place. Now I've reinterpreted that into I got a part-time job that is absolutely, it's an office assistant job. I've never had a job like that. It's totally irrelevant. So it's not taking up any of my creative energy at all. I'm working like now I was doing split days, but I'm also like mornings or afternoons. But now the schedule has changed to where I have only like 3 full days and the other two are totally off because I'm someone, if I have an appointment at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, nothing happens that day. I'm like, I can't focus. I don't know. That is it. Like,
Nothing can happen until
nothing can
4.
happen until, yeah.
And you're
So
still late.
yes, yeah. So it's like, okay, knowing this about myself, okay, how can I play with these levers? Because it's like a very different life. Like, it's like, oh, a traveling freelance art director who's also doing your own business, or office assistant who gets to feel grounded at home and also have that time and space for her. Like, and there's still moments where I catch myself being like, what am I doing right now? Like, this is so strange. But it's just because it's been so deeply ingrained to where, like, this makes sense and this is your field and this is this. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's funny because it's still the same idea, but it's a very different living of it. And I like that. And I know that it took me a long time to see that possibility. And I love that you could be a mirror for someone and be like, okay, I'm seeing this. And you could apply that same container structure wireframe of you in this way as well too. And how does that feel?
It's so powerful. Like, even the reframe of, this doesn't have to be my identity, or excuse me, like, your job doesn't have to be your identity anymore. Oh my gosh, how powerful, because now you get to utilize that energy in such a different way and be like, these are things that I'm really good at. This job, or say you have a 9 to 5 and you want to do things in your off time to create this rich inner life, or work on a business, or just bring some kind of creation into existence. You get to start reframing that and be like, this is what I'm good at. I can put this on autopilot, and then I get to save my energy for everything I'm excited about. And that goes, I mean, there's 5 different energy types, so everybody gets to interact with the world in a different way, but the bottom line is, like, if you're not excited about it, what the heck are you doing? If things aren't if things are feeling like you're clawing up the beach and the waves are, like, pulling you back out, then what is the point? Just flip over and let the waves wash over you, and you get to experience life even in a moment to moment basis in such a different way. Our reality changes in such a drastic way when we start to have these small, small reframes and give ourselves permission again.
Mm. Mm. And this just brings me to what we opened with when we first got on before we hit record. When you're like, if you're not enjoying yourself, if you're not like letting yourself be on that ride, what are we doing? We had come together talking about the emotional wave that we're all kind of
Yes.
on right now.
Yes.
Want to just speak more to that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So there are 50-50. Different people have different things, but when you look at a body graph, in human design, it's going to be on the right-hand side, and the little triangle that's pointing
I'm
to
sorry.
the
Can we,
right. You're
before we
fine.
do that, before we go into that, can you just
Sure.
high level human design,
Yeah.
science and astrology and whatever, and then go into that because I feel like I need to frame
Absolutely.
frame up.
No, and this is something that I like to be able to do with my content. So I'm actually doing a little series right now on some Human Design 101, because I found when I first started doing sessions that we have different kinds of brains, right? We have people who want to understand and be able to look at and see the same things that I'm seeing, because I just show up, I just look at the chart and I'm like, okay, I see this, I see this, I see this. And being able to frame it in a way that makes sense first, like give some logic and structure. So, with a little bit of the history of human design, it is what I would call a self-discovery system that blends ancient wisdom and modern science with all these different modalities to create this energetic blueprint where you get to kind of visualize what is going on with your soul. And so this is how you get to make decisions and interact with the world and really come back to your true self. It's not really like finding your true self. It's always coming home to yourself and finding this place where you feel safe and start to realize, like, oh, this is who I was all along. So it combines astrology, as well as the Chinese I Ching and Kabbalah, as well as the chakra system. And so, with all of that, we also have quantum physics and genetics. And so, with all of these, you're seeing the body graph chart, and you'll see on both sides the astrological signs and placements. And so, you have all the energy centers, the different shapes that create the body graph chart that have come from different chakra influences and how we have also evolved over the years. I mean, we started being as beings, we were in tribes, we were focused on survival, we were focused on taking care of each other, and we didn't have a lot of time to think about, the esoteric. And we were like, all right, the saber-toothed tiger is or is not going to kill me. Like, what can we do about that? And so over time, we've created more safety, more abstract ideas and creations and innovations. And so as a result, we've had more and more access to ourselves. And so we see in our charts 9 different energy centers. And then all of these little gates, these numbers inside correspond to the astrology. And we also have the connections, which are like, if we think of this like a blueprint, a map of a house, we have all the rooms that have different themes, the shapes, the energy centers. We have lights on in those rooms or off. We like lights. We don't use the big light though. And we also have the circuitry, which is like electric, plumbing, and AC that connects it all together. And so all the little circuits, all the lines that connect in different ways are with different energies, and we get to get around other people and start to influence them with our auric bodies, with the energy that we carry around with us all the time. And so that's why sometimes when someone comes into a room, you can feel it before you even turned around because you felt their presence. And so, with this blueprint, with this map of our inner sanctuary, we get to start to understand the influences and the energy that we have access to all the time, how we get to structure our days and our lives and utilize that energy to ration it towards different things that we have natural strengths for. And we get to plug in to other people, so to speak. And I like to say, color each other in with these open energy centers that are white. We get around another person, we kind of plug in and we start to color each other in. We get to have more access to ourselves. So, with all of that, let's see. One of those rooms with the emotional wave that I started to speak about is the solar plexus. And traditionally in the chakra system, I believe it's the fourth down. You might have heard it or use it in a meditation that talking about your confidence, your inner light, your strength. And we think of it as being in the opening of your rib cage. And what this is your emotional body. This is the atmosphere, moods, feelings that we are impacted with all the time. And so, with any of the energy centers, but especially with the emotional energy center of the solar plexus, we are 50-50, colored in or not. And it's kind of like, I think of it like when you go to the mall and everybody's there, the lights are on, there's music playing, there's people talking, screaming, whatever, coming from all the different stores, right? You go watch a movie and you come back and everything is off. And every step you take, every swish of your jacket when someone speaks out or yells, it starts to echo around. And so some people for the solar plexus, when you have it colored in, you have this emotional wave like songs playing in the background, like the soundtrack of your life, where you've got maybe on the high part of the wave, you've got some peppy music. On the low part of the wave, you've got some bluesy music. And in the middle is like elevator music. It's just neutral. And so all of us are experiencing some level of this all of the time, except when you don't have this colored in, you have silence in the background. You don't have this song playing in the background. And so when someone comes into that empty mall and starts blaring their beatbox, you're like, oh my God, please turn it down. Why are you so irritated from work? So angry at me? why are you so sad? And what we're doing here, when you have an open energy center for the emotional solar plexus, is you're feeling this amplified version of somebody else's emotions. And this can either show up in two different ways where you try to numb out all of that big energy because the person who brought it to you, they feel that on a 5. Maybe they are irritated from work, they got home, they feel that emotion at a 5. But you, with it not colored in, feel it at a 10 because it's amplified, it's echoing around the mall. And so you can either try to numb that out and calm it down and try not to feel everyone's feelings as much because you don't know how to cleanse it out of your system, how to dump out somebody else's emotions, or you are the one that people are like, why are you so dramatic? Why are you so sensitive? Blah, blah, blah. You're like, I feel like everybody's emotions all the time, all at once. I'm like a sponge. And so, this emotional wave, we feel this in three different ways. We'll see this when people have this center defined. We'll see it in individual the individual wave, the tribal wave, and the collective wave, and each one is shaped a little bit differently. Now, for an example of myself, I'm on the collective wave, and so it's pretty smooth. It's still got the ups and downs, but as a person who needs to make my decisions that way, I have to make sure that someone isn't catching me on my high part of the wave. Oh my gosh, you want to come to this party next weekend? You want to do this? You want to buy that? Oh, yes, I'm super excited right now. And then the time comes and I didn't make a decision from a neutral place. I'm like, who was I to think that I would have the energy for that? Why did I buy this thing? Oh, I was really excited and they sold it to me. And so this is where we can enter the conversation at a different time, but starts the conversation of how we get hijacked a little bit from these open energy centers and people starting to color us in. I think of them like a cup where we've got an empty cup and you're like, I want something to drink. And society says, okay, let me give you something. And you're kind of thinking, I think I want some coffee to drink. That would be cool. That feels like what I want. And society goes, oh, you want some orange juice? You're like, wait, no, that's gross. And you have to go dump that out and rinse it out. And you're like, okay, something else to drink, please. And conditioning goes, you want cranberry juice? You're like, no, but I don't know the word for coffee yet. And so you have to go dump that out. And it's this process of just dumping things out and rinsing them out until you start to realize what you really want in your cup so that you can fill yourself up and come back to that energy of, no, I can't be sold anything. I can't be hijacked. I know these tools and I know my human design to come back to who I am instead of drinking the orange juice just because it was there in my cup. Just because someone else gave it to me and I had nothing before, I'll accept it.
Oh my God. The way you said, I want coffee, but I don't know the word for coffee yet. It's so true because that's where we can get so squirreled up because it's like you don't feel this acute feeling of like betraying yourself or like because you don't even know you're like, oh, I don't have the words though for what I do want. So like you kind of can force yourself to be more open to things that you know that you don't it's not for you, but you're also like, I
Yeah.
don't know a better solution. But like having
Mhm.
the confidence and like uh inner trust and security to be like, I can hold out, I can wait for something better. Or I can,
Mhm.
whatever it is, just having that. Or even if you accept it, you're like, okay, for now, I'll do this, for very black and white, logical, day, everyday life requirements. Like, even if it's a job or whatever, but like being hyper aware of like, this is not for me. This cannot be a long term solution or XYZ. Is that when you say the open energy centers versus the colored in? Is
Mhm.
that like that whatever it is that goes on there is magnified like double? Does that go for every energy center if it's like clear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
sure does. It sure does. And that's why, for another example, and every time I do workshops or I use someone as an example, I don't use a person that the person Like, for example, if it was like a group program, I would never use a person that is in the group program as an example because everything is so personal. And so I try to always use myself and in my content as well and show an example of the body graph in my chart, like because it's all so personal. You never know what's going to be too far for somebody. But for this example, I have an open head center, the one at the very, very top. And so this is all magnified because the head center, like each room, each energy center has a different theme. I kind of think of it like the front porch because I'm bringing in all these ideas, all these thoughts, all these feelings, all these messages, all this stuff from social media. Like it's really important for me to draw boundaries around social media because my head is open. So I'll just pull in all this stuff that I'm like, ooh, this group program over here is doing this. Maybe I should do that. Or maybe this is going on over here. Maybe I should incorporate that in my business or my life. Oh, I should do this to be a better sister, a better wife, a better partner. And it's like, okay, I just dumped all this stuff in my head that I really have no business thinking about. And it's all being amplified. And when you don't have the connections to kind of move it throughout your energy centers to allow the other energies to help you work it out, that's when you want to get around other people. So I try to get around other people that either have a colored in energy center that connects to my head so I can start to think through these things or just voice these ideas and be like, oh, that didn't sound so great anyway. It was just echoing around for a long time. I was just giving it a lot of attention, so it seemed like it was important. That's when we have to find these ways to dump out our cup, so to speak, and rinse it out and be like, yeah, that wasn't it. And each energy center has a different theme. Each one is like that.
Yeah, I have an open head as well, head and mouth and or throat, whatever. And I just
Navrajna.
recently took Instagram off my phone because it's like because it's like everything could feel so vital. It is like everything is so exciting. I get deeply inspired by so it doesn't feel like so bad at the moment, and it also doesn't feel like so insidious either, but like the once again with the energy leaks and with the confusion and the overwhelm, it's like, oh yeah, I was so close to it that it felt like so big at the time, and now being
Right.
away from it, I do feel like because I only allow myself to access it on desktop, I find myself like
Mm,
getting in and getting out. And I do miss like experiencing people there in this way. I've met amazing people on there. I love viewing
yeah.
art on there, but that knowledge of yourself and it's like this is how I work and just like the way some people are like I'm more likely to be addicted to this. I should probably not play with that. I have an addictive personality or this or that.
Hmm.
Yeah, it really helps you make more informed, powerful decisions about how you're spending your time, which is the logical, tiny, actionable things, which blooms out and causes huge shifts in a life. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love the phrase to create more than you consume because
Yes.
that is
Mhm.
a huge piece of it, like having something that's open within you and something that's echoing around. And it's really cool. Like we can easily get sucked into social media because yeah, creators are freaking good. We have learned as a society to create really compelling storytelling, really compelling videos and editing, and like everything is so beautiful anymore. And being able to kind of throttle our attention and allow ourselves to enjoy a little bit, but not go over that line, it can be really tough, especially when we know. Um, for example, I have my identity center that is open. So all the time, I think of it like going into the fitting room at the thrift store or something and just putting on this coat and I'm like, "Oh, I saw this from social media. Like, is this me?" And then I'm like, "No, that's kind of small. Like, I'll take it off." And being able to realize like this is not part of who I am or this is not filling the hole that I thought that it would. And I think that I've heard you reference this concept a couple of times where we think it's a lot easier to say like, "Oh, I have social anxiety. I am an anxious person, or I am this person with this identity. But really, it's all these symptoms of something bigger where instead of being socially anxious, it's I am sitting in existentialism all the time. I'm curious about the big questions. I'm looking for the answers. I'm looking for the themes. And in that way, it presents as social anxiety. It's easy to say, well, maybe it's not easy, but you could say, as another example, I'm an alcoholic, instead of saying, my emotions are too big for me to feel. My power is too big for me to feel. And I can't live my life feeling like I'm squished into a box. So I'm dampening that emotion with alcohol. That's a lot different than saying, I'm an alcoholic.
So powerful. So such a powerful reframe. Oh my gosh. Oh, we should
Yeah.
that's a whole series of like fucking powerful reframes. The lower frequency interpretation of something versus the bigger. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Oh, so good. Um, yeah,
Thank you.
I think that, as I mean, always try to like hold like, okay, how to like holding this conversation. I think about how even you're an expert in this. It doesn't make you immune to feeling all of the other things that happen. It's not like I'm
Yeah.
a superhero now and I took the pill and I just
Yes, I
know that
know
everything I
everything.
do is perfect and I am imperfectly perfect as myself. It's like, but it feels like you have a shorter, like a smaller wave. Like it goes from like tsunami level, like up and down, to like it makes it gentler and softer and quicker to come back to that self
Mhm.
equilibrium. And I think that
Yeah.
that is, I mean, it, at the very minimal least that I could say, it speeds up an intentional life and a like a rightly lived and felt life. To be able to come
Yeah.
back to your center more quickly and not waste 5, 10 years of your life in this narrative that is
Mhm.
just a cycle that you don't need to be repeating because you didn't know that you didn't know that you were
Right.
not wrong.
No, I think this is a perfect way to conceptualize that. Like if we visualize a wave, just a regular, like a sound wave or something, it can feel like that huge highs and huge lows and just crashing. And I'll speak from my experience on this one, where it feels like you're at the top of the world, you're getting everything done, you're so decisive, you're so action oriented. And then you start to lose that energy and momentum, or you feel like one thing happened to trigger you or to send you into this spiral, and that bottom part of the wave comes so much faster and you just crash, and you're stuck in these emotions of like, why do I feel these bad feelings? And no feeling is good or bad, because what we get to do with this wave and starting to even it out, we're we're more we're more so shooting for that neutral feeling, as if it were a flat line of contentment, of neutrality, of groundedness and calmness. Whereas, yeah, we all feel the high highs and the low lows. But if we are respecting each part of that wave, like, oh, I'm a little bit more productive at this time, and now I'm going down a little bit and losing a little bit of energy. What can I do in this time, this part of the wave, to respect where I'm at? And oh, now I'm feeling a little bit lower. I'm feeling less motivated or less momentum, as you might say. And now I get to rest. Now I get to look at these feelings that are feeling like they're pretty big. I might be a little bit more sad. And this is my time to work through those, to wait for some more inspiration. And then you start feeling that rising action again. You start feeling like, okay, I'm ready to jump back in and start planning things. And respecting each part of it leaves more room for contentment and realizing, like, this is where I'm at right now. And that's
Mhm.
perfectly fine. I'm not a mess. I'm not perfect.
Mm.
And everything else is in between too.
I love the word respect in it, like, and thereby, if respecting each part of that wave, respecting each part of yourself. It's like, okay, when you find yourself in this like not or whatever, it's like, okay, wait, how can I respect this part of me? How can I respect where I'm at right now? And it kind of takes it off the table for being a good or bad or this or that. It's like, what is, and how do I show it respect and be with it? And as we know, like if you allow yourself to feel your feelings and like the, I mean, everything kind of eases from that point, even though it is difficult to do so often. But I love that. How can I respect each nuanced part of me, knowing that it's such an intricate constellation of who exactly I'm meant to
Mhm.
be? So if I'm changing that lens of, okay, this has, presented me with XYZ issues and in my life because I've lived with this trait in this way. If I respected this trait about me, what would it look like in how I'm living my life? So, and this is the I planned nothing and we end up here. So now I would love for you as we like come to wrap up this conversation. I could talk to you forever. I would love for you to share a little bit more about how you work with people and what you do because that's right, isn't
Mhm.
that like the heart of what you're doing and what are you up to?
Absolutely. I am all over Instagram. You'll see me posting all sorts of different things and educational things, fun things, whatever, just to learn a little bit more about yourself. And my website has a lot of free resources as well. As you kind of mentioned earlier, there's the free chart that you can run for your human design, and that results in a couple of PDFs. So you can get an introductory report that is super simple. Like you said, it's not it's not gatekeeping the information. It's like this is what is digestible for right now, and then you can go to the next thing and then the next thing and start to integrate it into your life with some digestible steps. And then when people are ready, they can go into a 90-minute human design reading with me, which you can also book through my website or Instagram. And then following that, I do 60-minute strategy sessions to help with that integration. It's more of that goal oriented, like how do I take my lived experience and distill it into some actionable steps so that I can move my business forward. And I do like 60-minute strategy sessions just off the bat, like whenever someone's ready, but it has been so beneficial to have the human design aspect first, or just share a little bit about your human design in the onboarding form. So I know where you're coming from, and you don't get advice. It's like, oh yeah, just hop right into it, or like just get started. It's like, oh well, that's not what your human design says you should do. um, so being able to first and foremost get a full reading with human design and then learn more about your strategy. And then I also have really flexible mentorship options. So you can bundle calls or you can do the high touch option with multiple calls a month, personalized resources, and Tuesday through Thursday Telegram. So we can chat, voice note, reflect on, share pictures. I have a client that just went to Portugal and she's like, I was thinking about my emotional wave, but also look at this castle. And so we get to stay in touch in a high touch way that feels really supportive while you're integrating all of these things. Um, and then I also have some other things coming. So little workshops, little resources, little, community and merch kind of things coming. So definitely keep an eye out.
You're on Substack now too, right?
I am now on Substack. Yes.
So maybe we could, I haven't done this yet, but maybe we can do like each podcast episode I have as a Substack post as well. And maybe we could do a
Yes.
collaborator on this one. So you can find Sylvia
Mhm.
on Substack then. And then what's your Instagram handle?
That's at sylbella.co, SYLBBELA.co. And that's also my website.
Yes. So please, if your spidey senses are tingling and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to know more, head to the website, download your chart, and just dive into yourself in that way. It is so amazing and rewarding and drink water.
Oh my gosh.
Or wine. Oh man. Well, Sylvia, thank you so much. This has been an absolute joy. Thank you.
Thank you. And I love collaborating. I love hearing everybody's perspectives on different things. So I'm always open to it.
Love it.